All right, so let's get right into it. A new battleground has opened up in the online culture wars, and it sparked a viral clash of worldviews. It's a debate that really gets into religion, politics, and what's even true anymore in the age of social media. We're going to deconstruct the whole thing for you. And it all really kicked off with this one pretty provocative statement from conservative commentator Michael Knowles. He's calling out a new style of online content that he thinks is designed for a very specific reason. This quote, it basically frames the entire debate we're about to unpack. So what on earth is a Sharia thirst trap? Well, Knowles coined the term, and according to him, it's a strategy. It's where social media creators use really slick, visually appealing videos to present arguments for Islam, specifically to a Western audience. And that's the phrase at the very center of all this.
Okay, so first up, let's look at this new online strategy itself. We're not talking about ancient texts here. This is all about modern media, social media, and a totally new way of doing religious outreach online.
At the center of this whole firestorm is a TikTok creator who has just blown up. They're packaging arguments for Islam into these short, super catchy and digestible videos. And Knowles' whole point is that this isn't just random content. He sees it as a really deliberate and honestly a pretty effective new way to spread the faith. Of course, that's what sparked the huge conservative pushback. All right, next, let's look at what the creator is actually claiming about Islam's growing influence here in the West. They're laying out some specific numbers, trying to paint a picture of a major shift happening right here in America.
First up, a number, 2,500. That's how many mosques the creator claims are now in the United States. The point here is to show, a real physical footprint, a solid foundation for the faith that's growing all over the country. But it's not just about buildings, right? The argument then pivots to actual political power. We're talking over 150 Muslim elected officials serving across 33 different states. That's the next big claim. And this is where it gets really specific. They're not just throwing out abstract numbers. They're pointing to mayors in major cities and states, and even the U.S. Ambassador for Religious Freedom. The message is clear. It's not just about being present anymore. It's about holding real positions of power and influence.
Okay, so from politics, the debate shifts to money, to economics. The creator's argument is that Islam poses a direct threat to what they call Western vice industries. Alcohol, gambling, and banking with interest. But Knowles fires back. He says, hold on, those aren't even the biggest sectors. And besides, he points out that Islam has its own massive financial systems and, of course, oil-rich nations. All right, let's keep going, because from politics and economics, we dive even deeper. Now we're getting into theology, history, and some really fundamental arguments about rights and scripture. And on the topic of women's rights, wow, you have two completely different stories. On one side, the TikTok creator claims that historically Islam was way ahead of the curve, giving women property rights while the West treated them as property. Then you have Knowles, who comes back with a totally different picture. He brings up so-called honor killings and the testimony of an ex-Muslim woman who said she felt like a slave. So you can see polar opposite views. From there, the creator goes on the offensive, directly questioning the authenticity of the modern Christian Bible. They lay out three main points. 1, the authors are actually unknown. 2, it was written in Greek, not Aramaic, which is the language Jesus actually spoke. And 3, the Gospels were written down decades after everything supposedly happened. And this is Knowles' big comeback. He basically takes that exact same logic and flips it right back around. He asks, okay, if writing something down decades later makes it questionable, what does that say about the Quran's account of Jesus' life, which was written 600 years later? It's a classic turn-the-tables argument. So all of this leads us to the final piece of the puzzle, and maybe the most explosive one, Sharia law. What is it really? Because the two definitions we're about to see, they could not be more different. And here you see the heart of the whole debate in a nutshell. The creator defines Sharia as all these wonderful, universally positive things. Smiling at someone, feeding the poor, respecting your parents. But then Knowles comes in and says, that's only half the story. He argues it's a partial truth and then adds the harsh legal punishments, things like chopping off hands for theft, flogging, and even execution for leaving the faith. So, building on that positive definition, the creator makes a huge economic claim. They say that because Sharia law includes no-interest loans, a society that follows it would have, quote, no poverty. And how does Knowles respond to that? Well, he just points to the real world. He brings up several impoverished Muslim-majority countries like Yemen and Somalia, basically saying the evidence on the ground doesn't support the claim that Sharia automatically gets rid of poverty. So here's the bottom line. We are left with two views of Sharia that just feel impossible to reconcile. Is it a gentle, ethical guide for how to live a good life? Or is it a rigid and at times really brutal legal code with severe consequences? And in the end, this whole online battle really boils down to a much bigger question, one that applies to any belief system, really. What defines its true nature? Is it the beautiful ideals it preaches, or is it the actual practices and laws that are carried out in its name? That, right there, is the question at the very heart of the Sharia thirst trap debate.